Jason and Peter are inviting you to enjoy this special 100th episode as we all celebrate 2 years of Really, No, Really.
When people say after 2 years, am I tired of doing this? Not at all. I every time we sit down and do this,
we learn something.
I meet somebody that I'm fascinated by, and I've learned something that I was not going to learn any other way. And so far, they've all been interesting learning. It hasn't been, you could teach me about the great battles of World War I. It's learning, but I'm not going to use it anywhere. This has all been stuff that in conversations everywhere I go, we had a guy on the podcast who talked about such and such. And it becomes useful information and interesting information to share with people. So thanks you for inviting me to this little soiree.
And thank you,
David, and thanks Laurie and everybody that is a part of our team that makes it happen, because it has been truly a joyful experiment to do these.
Really? No, really? Really? No, really? Really?
Yes, David. What do we got? Remind us what we've accomplished.
Well, let's go back to our first video episode with everyone's favorite, William Shatner.
Live long and prosper. And he continues to do so.
My gosh.
He continues to not only live long, somehow he continues to prosper.
And he looks, he's not aging like most people do. You know what I mean? He still looks really well. And he's still got all his beans, all his marbles at 90-something years old.
Well, he's got the ones he had.
Yeah. You love Shatner, so I love Bill too. Yeah, he's been a friend a long time.
He's my captain, my admiral.
We were thrilled to have him, and he had just been launched into space at age 91 or whatever. Yeah. So God bless him.
And hadn't considered the fact that there was not a doctor or a medical team on board.
So did they give you a contingency if it takes off and somebody has a heart attack on the way up or somebody gets sick?
Is there a doctor on the crew? Is there anybody if something
No,
goes?
man.
No, nothing.
You're on you're dead floating. You're dead and floating.
Yes, you're floating.
Wow. Did they bring it up?
Presumably, the G's going up and the G's coming down will bring you back to life because they're so
really, no, really
ferocious.
Wow.
That's what they tell you. Do you believe it?
No.
I didn't either.
Well, and another thing that's made it through the 100th episode is we still have the bell, the much maligned bell.
You don't know what that does to me and Laurie every time that's a producer, Laurie. Every time he hits that, the things I think of that I could do to him that involve dismembering, slitting, it's enough. Yeah. It's enough.
It's the signature of our show, the bell.
Unlike the clown cookie.
The clown head went away.
The clown went away. I didn't bring that in.
I wanted to use that. Did you break
it?
No, I wanted to use that for picking really no reallys for guests out of the head and being creative. He nixed it. So.
I didn't nix it.
Right. Yeah.
You just made a statement, and I want to say categorically what has happened repeatedly over these 100 episodes is you make statements as if you know, because of the depth of our friendship and the time we've spent together, you make a declarative statement that is categorically false, and I have no way to push back against it. So the statement you just made is, I nixed the clown. I didn't nix the clown. We came, and the clown was gone. The clown was inconsequential to me. You didn't use it, so it was here or it wasn't here. I didn't nix the clown. Let it be known I didn't nix the clown.
Okay, so
and the other thing you said categorically is that I'm a terrible driver compared to you.
You're bringing that up. Let's address the clown.
Let's address the clown.
David, what he does...
There will not be 101 episodes, that's for sure.
What he does... What he does repeatedly is forgets what he has said. So
unequivocally... Oh, really? Who's the one that memorizes lines for a living? Who's the one that has to retain...
He can't... There you go.
Yeah.
This is our relationship.
Okay.
So David, the clown, he nixed. I brought it in. I want to do it. He said, I don't understand what this is. Let's not do it. So that was it. The clown disappeared. Why would I bring the clown
David,
and get rid of it
the lives
and get rid of
of
it
my
myself?
children.
Oh my God! Don't do that because you don't remember.
Wow.
I wish we had a tape of you
I may
nixing
have
the clown.
made fun of him about the clown. I never nixed the clown. I don't nix anything on this show. This is Peter's show. If I was going to nix anything, there's about 20 other things I could think of that I would nix before I got to the clown.
Let's move on. Let's
Him
move on.
being very high on the list.
Let's move on and just say the clown's name was nixed. So,
Jesus.
Do we know where the actual physical location of the
I don't know,
of the
Laurie.
clown
Do we
is?
know where the clown is? Do we still have the clown head? Does it exist, or did you break it?
The clown has disappeared. We don't know where it is.
It disappeared.
The clown has
Where-
disappeared
Oh
into
my
the
God.
asthma.
The mystery.
That is Howie Mandel's warehouse.
Exactly.
Oh wow, wow. Well, that's sad. All right.
Yeah.
To get back to better times,
Yes.
Yes.
we had a dancing guest who was about to hit 100 years old, Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So in a tough business, you got a sitcom that Carl was supposed to star in, and they put your name. How did that happen that your name ended up on
We
the
couldn't
sitcom?
think of a title. We worked and worked. We could not think of a title. And then the first series, the first year, nobody ever heard of me. And we were on against Perry Como, and they canceled us. And Sheldon Leonard, who was the producer,
Yeah.
went to Cincinnati and talked to the P&G guys and talked them into letting us.
Are
have
you
a set.
Procter & Gamble
serious?
said they wouldn't do
Otherwise,
it
we
without
would
him.
have disappeared.
Amazing.
No, wait. So in the first year of the show, it wasn't responding with audiences?
No, we were on against Perry Como, and he got all the.
Oh, and he was
ratings.
just
Nobody
taking the
saw it.
audience. Oh, I got
They
you.
kept saying, "Who's Dick Van Dyke?" It didn't
Right.
make it- Yeah.
Or Rosemary said, "What is a Dick Van Dyke?"
What? Yeah. What is it? Dick
But
Van Dyke?
amazing how what that did for your career right away. And much like Seinfeld, there's so many parallels, Jason, as far as Tony winners and as far as Joy. Carl decided after 5 years to pull the plug. They never wanted to go past 5, like Jerry didn't want to go past
Yeah.
9. That show could have gone on, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Carl was the only one that didn't want to go on. He wanted to move on into movies and everything.
And was
the
that-
rest of us were just so
my God.
sad
Yeah,
we
what
wanted to go
were
on.
you think when you're on a joyous hit show and the boss wants to pull the plug? What were you, I mean? Did you go? That's it. I'm done. I'm finished.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what we were going to do. Everybody, and Mary Tyler Moore.
But you had the movie. You had Mary Poppins in between those 5
Oh,
years.
I did Poppins.
So that helped. Okay.
During the break.
That would be a big
Was
help.
that during the run of the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right.
And
That's
you
right.
did Bye Bye
During
Birdie.
the time off we shot, it only took 4 months. Chitty Bang Bang took over a year.
Really?
We couldn't find any sun in England.
Wow.
And by the way, kudos, because also on that episode was his wife Arlene,
Who was wonderful. Yeah.
who is wonderful. And it's one of those marriages where there is, decades between them.
Doesn't
and
matter.
some of us who are, I don't know why people raise eyebrows at these things, but some people go, oh, when they see a May December thing, they go, oh, it's a gold digger kind of thing. This is a couple that truly loves each other,
And enjoys
takes
every
care
minute.
of each other,
Yep.
enjoys each other. It was actually one of those relationships that you go, oh, that's how it should be.
Yeah, you got
know?
it right away. We weren't
Yeah.
sure, and then as soon as you see them together, you go, I totally.
And
get
I
it.
said to Arlene, what is, and she goes, we sing together every day.
And
She
they
said I
dance-
had lost music, and he brought music back into my life.
and
We
they
sing
dance
every day.
together.
Yeah.
And they have.
Have you seen the Coldplay, that video?
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
amazing,
Beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah.
So Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Hope
To
you last
100
a
and
long
plus.
time. Yeah,
Dick.
you got it.
Go get him, brother.
Right. And then another one of our most popular episodes. Do you guys know what the most popular episode that we've
I
done?
would guess either Bryan Cranston or Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight. Yep.
Yeah.
Very funny man. Very smart man with a range of ability that as most characters do, they don't get to show you the full.
Right.
And I remember, for me, the seminal exchange on that episode was I had said to him, I had found out there were one or two notable people who said that when they did the show as a guest, they didn't have the best experience. They found us to be, I guess, cold or whatever. And so I said to him, did you think we were a warm group or a cool group? And he went, do you remember what he said? There was an actor named Armin Shimmerman who did an episode of our show, and I saw something about Keith Hernandez, both of which Armin said that our cast was very unwelcoming to him. He felt like he was not appreciated at all. Keith Hernandez said, I in particular I think the word was standoffish. I always thought we were, and I'm not looking for a compliment here, I thought we were kind of a welcoming, set. We were excited about people that
Have
would
you
come
ever been
in.
on another show?
Yeah.
Well,
many.
then, and you still think that? Anyway,
Were we?
No.
Were we cold? Were we welcoming? Were we warm? Were we
you were
anything?
professional.
Uh-huh.
And you were the top show on television, and it was like, this is opening night on Broadway. Don't fuck it up.
Is that the vibe you got?
Oh, wow.
The vibe is that everybody was thrilled to be there, and they understood the nature of this beast. And Jerry was welcoming and friendly and whatever.
Right.
Larry was scary as hell.
Yeah.
Because he was too relaxed seeming, and you couldn't, like, how could somebody so laconic and loose be so
running this-
scary?
Right.
No, I think that I think that I enjoyed being on the show because every time you started a scene, you knew it delivered. You just had to not be in the way of it.
Right, yeah.
Find the joke, hit the joke. The joke is there. So, I mean, the number of shows I've been on where, you go on an expedition to find the joke.
Right. Yeah.
This was not that.
And we also found out that Wayne was a private investigator for.
No, that's right.
That was
Yeah.
right.
I did know that.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Which makes you laugh too, because you can picture Wayne sitting in a car all night drinking coffee, following a cheating husband, and hating it.
Yeah.
And then again, another one, and we have that are not celebrities, but who could forget, as you said, Jason, the Bryan Cranston episode where we finally had George Costanza meet Walter White.
Maybe.
Just as a great tribute, if I may, to how I really know how the business works and what things are going to go and what are not. I don't think I've ever told you this. Bryan and I were doing a play together around the time he was doing the pilot for Breaking Bad. And he very casually said to me, yeah, I've done this pilot. If it goes, it shoots in New Mexico. And, I'm probably be spending a lot of time in New Mexico. I said, what's it about? He said, well, I play a chemistry teacher who's dying of cancer. So to provide for his family, I start cooking crystal meth. And I said, yeah. Hey, don't buy any property.
Yeah, you don't want to. He's not the guiding light.
I am not. I would not be the guy to oversee your cap system. I would not be that guy.
But if you read that script,
I would have been
It would have
blown
been a
away
different-
by it. Of course I would. Of
And
course I
that's-
would. I was
that's-
being
And
a
by the way,
different-
okay, so I got two
silly.
iconic characters here. I just want to see, because you could cry on cue, how quickly you can both get into that character. How quickly you can get into Walter White and Jason can get into George. 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, I just
say
have
my
to.
name.
I just have to put on glasses. He has to shave his head. That's not Walter White.
It's not Walter White.
That's Walter. That's not Heisenberg. And first of all, why Heisenberg? Why Heisenberg? And what's with the hat?
Yeah,
What was with the hat?
you talk a lot, little man.
Oh, I'm scared. I'm supposed to be scared now, right? I don't live in his world. I don't, blue meth. Was the blue a mistake, or did you plan that? Did it come out blue and you went, let's leave it?
Came out blue. Why not?
By the way, I would watch the George Costanza Walter White interview show.
Can you imagine those
Can
two
you
together?
imagine if Jesse
He would-
Pinkman
yeah.
had been George Costanza?
Another one of our big ones, The Secret to Happiness with Dr. Laurie Santos, where we're talking about the course in how to become happy.
A happy person. How did you get drawn to this subject? How did you become someone who could stand up and actually not only speak to it, but teach about it?
Yeah, well, it really started by seeing kind of how bad my students were having things, right? I mean, these days, nationally, students are reporting more depression and anxiety than
Right.
they ever have in generations, right? I mean, nationally right now, more than 40% of students say they're too depressed to function most days. Over 60% say that they feel overwhelmingly anxious, and more than 1 in 10 has seriously considered suicide in the last year, right? This was what I was seeing on the ground. And when I saw that, I was like, man, we have to we educators have to do something. We can't pretend that students are just kind of getting through college when the stats are that bad. And so I kind of did like I'm a psychologist by training, so I did this sort of retraining in this field that's known as positive psychology, right? Like how can you kind of experience life with a little bit more flourishing? And so I said, yeah, I'll just, slap together this new class. I thought it's a new class on campus, so 30 kids or so would take it. You can imagine my surprise when I walked into a quarter of the entire Yale student body who was like trying to get into this room.
Amazing.
To take the class. We taught the class in a concert hall because that was the only spot other than the stadium where we could fit everyone who wanted to take the class. And so, yeah, that was the story. It was just seeing the need like on college campuses to realize like students are struggling and we got to give them some like real strategies they can use to feel better.
And we have spoken with several celebrities or comedians on the program that have just been so hilarious. I mean, we have Kevin Pollak.
And yes, I did absolutely wait for the phone to ring for many years. Yeah. Between being a stand-up comedian, rising to the local scene in San Francisco where I'm from, moving to LA, and then getting my first job in LA, there was at least 200 auditions where at one point it started to feel like, how about anyone but you was going to get it? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and in fact, it was A Few Good Men. That's what was the goal line of going from auditioning to getting offers. It was the 8th movie that I did, and yeah, that was the one that.
Yeah.
And to be clear to the earlier setup, as we discussed on the chat show many years ago, and has made the circuit. But I'm glad Peter hadn't heard it before because it allowed me to come on your program here. Yeah, so I was doing a summer series created by Rob Reiner and Christopher Guest for CBS that 9 people ultimately ended up watching, called Morton and Hayes. And I would have lunch every day with Rob Reiner, and he, at one day at lunch, pointed his sizable finger in my face and said, this next film I'm doing was a big Broadway success. I got Tom Cruise. I think we're going to get Jack Nicholson. And there's this part of Tom's co-counsel that you're perfect for. I've got an offer out to Jason Alexander, but if Seinfeld gets picked up for a second season, he won't be available. And I'm just now realizing you could do this. And, a couple things. A, I went home, of course, and prayed for Jason's success. Like more intensely than I had prayed for anything ever. But also just people talk about good luck, right? So the fact that I was having lunch on a daily basis with Rob while he was casting that movie is just completely, utterly luck of the draw.
We have Leanne Morgan.
All the time, though, from the time I was a child, I wanted to be in show business. But life kicks you in the teeth and you think, maybe I'm crazy. I shouldn't think that or whatever. But I always had it in the back of my mind. So we go to Bean Station. I get pregnant with my first baby, Charlie, who's now 30. And I wanted to stay home with him and nurse. And Chuck Morgan doesn't like for me to spend money. And that's not a shtick. I'm not kidding. Chuck, I wanted to get my hair highlighted. I wanted to buy Charlie an outfit. So one of my girlfriends was selling jewelry in Nashville, Tennessee. And she goes, it's like Mary Kay or Tupperware Land. And you'll make a little money. And you can stay home with Charlie. And I started selling jewelry in women's houses at night. They'd put a dip out or in a pan of brownies, and we'd eat dip. And then I developed an act. And I look back on it now and I think, oh my gosh, there were no comedy clubs for 100 miles.
Right.
But I thought I had my own little comedy club every night. And these women thought I was funny. Carmen peed on a couch. She now works for my eye doctor. I love her. We hold each other every time I see her. Her husband walked off and left her, Peter. And I told her, I go, you don't understand, Carmen. It was a God thing. When you peed on that couch, it gave me the courage to go, I think I can make it.
We've had Tom Cruise's stuntman, stunt coordinator.
You're sending Tom Cruise off a cliff on a motorcycle, and I think the parachute had to open, and he had like the plus minus error was like 4 seconds. I mean, you're sitting there. When he takes off to do that stunt, are you looking, or are you looking for openings for stuntmen just in case, what other actors I could be helping if he doesn't quite make it? I mean, there's no way you can do that 100% know he's going to live.
I had my agent on speed dial, and I had the next job lined up. Not at all. It was actually, we trained so hard for that, and Tom did a bunch of, with all the skydives, he was tracking with, we did loads of exercises, jumping out of the helicopter at the same sort of speed as the bike, and tracking and getting it off the helicopter and being unstable and righting himself into a track. And I mean, we worked tirelessly with the team to make sure that Tom was so competent that there was no one that could actually ride a motorbike off a cliff and do a base jump better than Tom Cruise.
We've had python hunters that she went out into the bogs.
I've seen the video, but for people that haven't, can you describe briefly how do you capture a 17-foot python? What do you do?
Well, typically with a normal snake that's not quite that big, you grab it behind the head, right? You get all the way up behind the jaws, because if you get down even just a little bit, they'll turn around and they'll nail you. So you have to catch them behind the head. So with the 17-footer though, I was by myself and I cannot outmuscle a 17-footer. Most people can't. And so I knew early on that I was probably going to come across a big snake, and I needed to be prepared for how I was going to do this. And so in the vet and pet store business, we would put a dark cloth over the animal's eyes or their face to calm them down. So I thought, maybe this would work for a python. So I practiced with like a couple 13 and 14 footers, and I would put this bag, this 6-foot black drawstring bag, or 6-inch, 6x6-inch drawstring bag over these python's heads, and they just stopped. It just stopped them cold. So so the night that I caught that 17-footer, it was so funny because I was by myself. It's midnight, and I'm driving my truck slowly down the road, and I see this thing periscoping, and I pull the truck over, and I grab my GoPro and I grab my little bag, and I get out, and I don't know how big the snake is. I mean, I just know that it's a python. And so by the time takes like 30 seconds to get to this snake. Well, in the meantime, it had gone down. It took me a good minute to find this thing. It is 17 feet long. I know where it is, and I still couldn't find it. Wow. That's why it's so hard to get these things, right? So when I finally see some pattern through the grass, and I follow it up, and I see the biggest head of a snake I've ever seen. And I'm standing there, and I'm looking at this bag, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? But I just, you can't hesitate. So I just jumped on it, and I nailed it down. Now, keep in mind, I can't see the rest of the snake. I have no idea how big the snake is. I just know that it's pretty big. And it wasn't a wrestling match. It was more a battle of strength, because it was trying to shimmy back into the swamp. So I'm, actually squatting it up with my, legs, trying to keep it from going back in the swamp. And then I ended up getting that bag over its head. And as soon as I did, it just stopped.
My favorite thing that came out of the animal handlers is a personal in-house story that you know very well about our dear friend Mr. Guggenheim, who the year that we had the python lady on, this is a woman, a tiny woman, by the way, she's 5 foot, nothing, is credited with catching one of the world's biggest pythons in the Florida Everglades single-handedly. Well, that year for Christmas, I had sent friends of mine a belt, a very special belt that has a unique locking system. There's no holes in the belt. There's just little ratchets. And I sent one to David, and David apparently emailed you and said, "Hey, do you have the address of the python lady? I need it desperately." And you wrote back, "Why?" He said, "I put Jason's belt on. I can't get out."
So our lawyer sent a series of pictures of him trying to get out of the belt, and he had a chainsaw,
a blowtorch,
other stuff. And I admitted to Jason, I think how long ago was that? Was it last year?
It was last year.
So I have not, I told David the other day, I have not attempted to use the belt because I'm scared. Because I remember the first time
I'm wearing it right now.
I know, but the first time you used it, you had to go to the bathroom and panic because you couldn't get it off.
Well, that's true.
So
I put it on the first time, and I had to. I was at DEFCON 1, and
I told David. Yeah. So I told David, it's not that I don't like the belt. I'm scared of it. But I do carry it with me all the time because if I get bitten by a snake or something bad happens, it's a tourniquet. Yeah, right. Because I'll never be able to open it.
I'm wearing it right now. It's easy peasy to use.
And you just said I have to go to the bathroom. Somebody cut this off me.
No, it's you're all crazy. Great belt.
Great belt. Great belt.
I'm wearing. I can unratchet myself right now.
Look, how proud
if I could
of you.
figure it out.
How proud of you.
we've done a lot on technology, some of the really cool things about technology. We have TikTok bans. We've talked about the AI realities and possibility.
Yeah.
They're cloning controversies. They're bringing back the mammoth.
We wanted to both deal with endangered species, develop technologies that could help endangered species, and also endangered environments, to some extent, including the global environment. And so it's a little complicated answer. I'm sorry. Most of my answers will be simple, but this one is the elephant is endangered, and all species of elephant are endangered because they coexist with humans that either they're a nuisance to them by destroying their farms, or they are a target for poaching for their ivory.
Right.
So it would be nice if they could have a homeland. They used to be spread all over almost the entire globe, and one of those prominent places were close relatives to the modern elephants. The woolly mammoths were present in the Arctic. So if we could make them cold resistant, then they would have 20 million square kilometers. They could roam all over where there basically are almost no people and much less conflict. And then they can return that favor to the Arctic. The Arctic's in big trouble because it's melting, and it's melting at twice the rate of the temperature is going up twice the rate of most other parts of the Earth. And what's at risk is in the Arctic, there's a lot of methane that could be released, and that methane is 80 times worse than carbon dioxide. Then the question is, well, how can cold-resistant elephants help keep the permafrost frozen? And in the three ways, and then I'm done with this long answer.
No, I love it.
The three ways are that a lot of the snow builds up kind of like a down blanket in the trees, and there's no animals that can really feel they can penetrate and tromp down the snow and look there. But not so long ago, a few thousand years ago, before the mammoths, 10,000 years ago, before the mammoths were extinct, actually before a lot of herbivores were driven to extinction in the Arctic, it was mostly grasslands. It was very rich, much richer, more species rich than it is today. And the grasslands were easy to maintain, and they tromped around in the snow, and then the cold winter wind would minus 40 degrees would get down and freeze the permafrost every year after a summer thaw. So that's one thing, is the changing trees to grass allows the herbivores to tramp it down and dig around and let the wind penetrate. Second thing is that grass is more better at photosynthesis and carbon sequestration, pulling the carbon dioxide out of the air. And the third thing is it's better at reflecting the heat and the light that heats up the permafrost. So those are the three reasons why the elephants might help with probably one of the biggest risks to global warming.
Yeah, we did, and all kinds of human engineering and technology. We also had the guy who's de-aging.
Oh, the de-aging. I wonder how
Bryan Johnson.
He's doing
Wouldn't it
great.
be funny
I
if he
actually
comes
reached
in?
out to him for something, and he got right back to
It'd
me.
be funny if we had him in again in another year.
And an 8-year-old walks
It's
in.
Benjamin Button. Yeah, he's like 8. He's just starting preschool. It's like whatever. It's like, wow.
We built an algorithm using machine intelligence that takes better care of me than I can myself. I basically said, my mind is not qualified to run me. My mind is going to eat bad food. It's going to eat junk food. It's going to overeat. It's going to do all these terrible things. And we have these algorithms that do a much better job at many things than we can ourselves. So why wouldn't I have an algorithm run me? And so then we started measuring. I became the most measured person in human history. With all the data, we looked at the scientific evidence, and we built an algorithm. And then my only thing I had to say yes to was yes to operate the algorithm.
And again, we have these trends. Tourism, right? We have sleep tourism that we were talking about. We've talked about what happens to your luggage when it loses it and how to buy it from other people's.
Yes.
We had CNN's Richard Quest on to talking about airline safety with a year of things popping off of
Planes,
airplanes,
yes, you bet.
and of course. our friend that went down to the bottom of the sea to look at the Titanic a few months before the darn thing popped like a can.
Mike Reiss. Yeah,
Mike
Mike
Reiss. Mike Reiss, one of the writers and was a producer on The Simpsons for a long, long time.
And he and his wife go to the most dangerous places in the world. He's been kidnapped. He's been
threatened.
Let me go into some of your other troubles just to ask this question. So you said you were, abducted in Honduras. Has there ever been a situation in a serious way where you go, "Oh, we're really in trouble now. We have a big problem." What was that?
This is it. It's a 2-minute story. I have no stories under 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's okay.
It was just about a year ago. It was New Year's Eve in Namibia. And this is something we didn't even think would be dangerous. But it was, my wife said, "Oh, let's hire a car and a driver and watch the last sunset of the year from the Namibian desert on top of a sand dune." So we go, all right. And of course, I say yes, because that's the only word I know. And so we booked this, and it's very romantic, and we're watching the sunset. And then my wife looks over at the car and she goes, "Why are the lights on?" And I said, "Honey, the man knows what he's doing," which of course are always famous last words. So
Sure.
The sun goes down. We pile back in the car. The guy tries to start the car and it's dead. It's dead. He ran the battery down, and we get on our cell phones and there's no phone reception from the Namibian desert. So we're stuck there, right? And the desert, when the sun goes down, goes from 80 degrees to 40 degrees. Wow. So it's really cold. My wife is in a bathing suit. We are not prepared for this. And then this is where the car driver did something that wouldn't even go in a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. He had such a stupid plan where we get out of the car and he starts pushing it to the edge of a sand dune. And his idea is it'll roll down the sand dune and start up. And it's like, yeah, but we're not in the car. It's just going to take off. The car will be saved, and we're going to freeze to death in the desert. But instead, I'm getting near the end here. Instead, he pushed it half off the sand dune, so it's teetering over the precipice. Like if you remember the original Italian Job, it was like that.
Yeah.
That classic ending was now my life, where it's teetering there. So now we can't even get in the car for warmth. It's too dangerous. So we're just going to have to sit there and freeze to death in the desert. And that's the closest point. I thought, I'm going to die here. And the thought I couldn't get out of my head was, I'm going to die here. I'll never get to see Avatar 2.
We've done a couple of museums, right? We had the Mafia Museum there in Las Vegas, and of course we had the Museum of Failure, which we learned about a lot of things that didn't pan out very well.
Yeah, that one of my favorite episodes, by the way, because it's just such a great idea. Because everything in it, every time he showed us something, we went, "Oh yeah!" I mean, it was just a walk down memory lane.
Big pens for women, and you go, why would a woman need a different pen? And why would Dick think to do that?
Right.
That a guy's going to buy a big pen and he's got, let me get one for my wife because she can't use this one.
And flavors of soda that nobody wants. But what I loved about forgive me, I can't remember the gentleman's name who is the curator of it. But what the episode became about was how much success comes out of failure. There's really no such thing as failure. It's just a step on the way to something that is good and right.
That was Dr. Samuel West.
There you go.
I think failure is fascinating because I've been doing it for a while. We're interested in it for a while. But I mean, one thing that's fascinating is the paradox. On the one hand, society says, hey, we really want you to innovate. We look up to entrepreneurs who take risks. All this is fantastic. But then at the same time, society stigmatizes failure. So there's like, we want you to do it. But if it doesn't work out, we're going to punish you in some way or judge you.
Right.
So that's one element of it. The other is that there is something, like you said, that companies, when they embrace failure, there's not really that many companies that do actually embrace failure. But some companies are much better at taking risks and being willing to accept that failure is necessary for any kind of innovation or progress. So that's also the aim of the museum, to sort of drive home that point that we have to accept failure if we want. We got to take the bad with the good. We can't just have the good.
But it's inherent, like in science. I know in doing
science
medicine,
is fueled by failure.
right? It's all about eliminating what it's not to get closer to what it is, and you rely on failure after failure. As long as you learn from the failure and adjust, you're getting closer to what the answer is.
Well, to that extent, Dr. West, are you aware of anything that began as a completely abject failure and was turned around to become a success? Is there anything that jumps out like that?
I mean, there are the sort of examples that everybody knows about with the Post-it note and Viagra, which both were sort of unexpected successes. But I mean, I often get approached by both journalists and the corporate side, where they say, hey, we really want you to give a talk, or we want to come visit the museum or something, but we'd like to focus on the failures that lead to something successful.
Right.
And I always resist that, because I think that's sort of talking about failure from within the narrative of success. And I think there's failure in and of itself, even when it doesn't lead to success, is interesting also, and should also deserve some attention.
And of course, there's the alternative places to live, right? We've had the astronaut on. We were talking about living in space, and of course, space junk. We've had a couple gentlemen who are living underwater.
Yeah.
And even one of our guests explores what the hell's under major cities that you have no idea that's under there.
He was amazing. He's one of those guys that you just ask, what's under New York, and you let him go.
Oh, yeah.
And the history of what's under New York and why. And then, the reason we did that episode was I always, when I go to New York, go, that steam coming up is really cool in the winter, but that's steam. If I had that in my house, I call the guy and I say, the plumbing, there's a steam leak. Well, New York is a steam leak, and you find out why. Listen to the episode, you'll find out why, and then you walk gingerly through the streets of New York.
But also, we basically learned every major city in the world is built on another city, and they didn't decimate the other city when they started building. So underneath there, if you know how to find it, are remnants of our history and civilization.
And different civilizations.
And fascinating.
How creepy is it just in general going under cities? Is that...
It depends on the space. This basically comes from the fact of the matter that in old times, it was a lot easier to knock something down and bury it instead of, as we do today, carry it away, and so you end up with layers upon layers of civilization in these older areas of the world that are still there, and when you go down and look for them, you find those older versions of whatever city you're standing in. This is a very, very lively subject that goes from, ancient man up until modern times, because the same thing happens today. We build foundations that we build upon. We dig things with tunnel boring machines. It's just this huge realm underground that once you get access to it and start looking around, it just kind of blows your mind about the incredible innovations, the determination of human beings to do what they do and create the structures that they need to do, to build their buildings.
And then we have some folks who have done some really strange jobs, right? I mean, obviously we had Mike Rowe on who talks about dirty jobs everywhere.
You turned down being on Deadliest Catch? You don't want to be in the Bering Sea at minus 40 below with the chance of getting killed?
I hosted that first season.
I know.
Yeah.
But they gave you a chance to be on the boat, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then I was trying to sell dirty jobs, but it was a talk show in a sewer, so they didn't want it.
Right.
They sent me up to Alaska. They said, well, look, if you like this kind of thing, you'll probably like working as a greenhorn on a boat. Or maybe you're more like Stone Phillips. They didn't know what that show was at the time. But I went up there in 2003 and worked on a boat called the Bountiful and tried to figure out what this show was. And while we were doing that, 6 men died in the course of filming this thing. And it was truly unlike anything I had seen. And it was true reality. I mean, you can't script the Bering Sea.
Right.
And so when they saw that footage and when they understood what the stakes really were, I think they thought a little differently about dirty jobs too. And they were like, you know something? Go ahead and, well, you pick one. You can't host both. That's crazy. So, when in doubt, choose the one with your name in the title.
Right, sure.
So Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe goes on the air around the same time as Deadliest Catch premieres. But they took me out of the first season and just let me narrate. And it was the right move.
But we'd had a woman who rented herself out as a bridesmaid.
Right.
We've had people light themselves on fire. We've had people shoot themselves out of cannons. We've had the woman on scent, right, where she makes her job as a professional nose in creating scents for celebrities and so forth. And of course, the perils of celebrity endorsements.
Yeah.
Which really was all about whether or not I was going to get a liquor franchise.
Yeah, we used
and that has not come to be.
You want to leverage your persona. You want to leverage your assets. You want it to connect, in an obvious way to consumers. They want to know, what are the casts that you are best known for? The characters are. Yeah,
I see.
No rum for you. No rum for you. No rum for you. Rum.
I like it.
I like it too. What do you think? He likes it too. Look at that.
You know what? Serenity rum. Serenity rum.
Serenity.
Yeah.
No, I like no rum for you better.
No rum for you.
Right, Mark? What do you think?
Yeah, that works.
Mark, he didn't care.
No rum for you.
Now, can you get us the money by Tuesday? Is this, by the way, is this what you do? Joking aside, this is what he does?
This is what you do?
This is what we do.
Mark, I'm totally open for no rum for you. I just want to say.
So we gotta, work on what kind of rum it is, what flavor profile is, what the bottle looks
coconutty,
like, what the
a little
label looks
coconutty.
So we're doing our next episode next Thursday. You come back on. Every episode is developing Jason's rum. Can you imagine that? And it takes off. We have the number 2.
Mr. Beast has burgers and chocolate. We've got rum. Do you have, after 100 episodes, a favorite episode?
For the forgiveness, I think
that's
the forgiveness
mine
episode,
too.
Just because it surprised me so much, and it so organically became a wonderful episode that took me to a place and took, I think, you to a place that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah,
and how powerful
yeah.
forgiveness is for the person doing it and the person receiving it. And it sounds, again, just saying it, if you're listening, you sound, oh yeah, forgiveness episode. The gentleman who does the Forgiveness Institute was really special. It's like
Very
Dick Van
special.
Dyke, like Mr. Rogers. You get the same feeling that he's genuine, he's authentic, and that he's making a difference.
When people treat us deeply unjustly, what tends to happen is anger starts building in the heart. And psychologists make a distinction between healthy anger and unhealthy anger. Healthy anger is when someone treats you unjustly. At first you say, look, I'm a person of worth. It's not fair. I'm offended. But you get over that quickly. Unhealthy anger is a very unwelcome guest in the human heart. The unhealthy anger comes into your heart, takes off his shoes, sits on the couch of your heart, and doesn't want to leave. And as you live with this unhealthy anger, which literally you could keep it for 40 years, you tend to have lower energy, you tend to be disrupted in sleep, you tend to perhaps ruminate on the other, and that person and all the bad stuff from that person is now living in your heart. That person has a lot of power over you. Think about it. That person might have been unfair to you 40 years ago, and all the effects of that are still in your heart.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that was absolutely, without question, my favorite among many favorites. But that was what I loved about that is how emotional you and I got during that show. He really was able to touch us in a very unexpected way, and what he had to say and what he had to offer was absolutely beautiful and presented so beautifully.
And I'm proud to put it out there. It was an episode that you're proud to do.
It was
and put
really.
out.
And what I love about the show, just to wrap this up, what I have really enjoyed about this, other than your company, which is always a joy, is my favorite episodes are the ones where we go in with a bit of an attitude. Right? Like the woolly mammoth guy he's bringing back the woolly mammoth. And you and I, in our prep, went, oh, we're going to cut this guy a new ass. Then you see Jurassic Park. This never goes well. And the first thing out of our mouth is, why are you trying to bring back the woolly mammoth? And he goes, not trying to bring back the woolly mammoth. I'm trying to save the elephant. And we go, excuse me now?
And I'm dealing with climate change.
Yeah. And our silliness becomes, Oh, and it becomes a great learning episode.
Goes
Can
up.
I
There you
can
go.
I say
Yes, sir.
of all of our endeavors
Mhm.
together, all that we've done 3 television series together,
Mhm.
we've done live shows together, we've created all kinds of things. Nothing has ever reached 100 that we have touched. 10 is a big number for us. As strange as it may sound, this is the most successful venture you and I have ever launched. This is it. This is our winner.
Well, thank you, and thank you for everybody who's helped us with the show out there, who watches and listens.
Exactly.
It's really
Thank
cool.
you for watching and listening, and we're going to keep going, and we look forward to bringing you 100 more.
You got it.